Okay, I guess we're gonna get started. So, what I thought I would do today is show how I made the 11-minute dungeon video. So, I guess about 3 years ago, according to YouTube anyway, I made this little video and it showed me using some basic Photoshop techniques to make a dungeon, kind of one of these 2D old school top-down OSRE kind of dungeons. And I've used those tricks a few times. It's got some good time saving, but for a couple reasons, I don't think it's a great stream because there's no real explanation of what I'm doing. There's a big chunk of text down at the bottom, but it's not quite the same as seeing the steps. So I thought I'd kind of have a do-over and try again, and this time explain everything. So this is a totally basic installation of Photoshop. I mean, I've used it for a bit, but I'm not going to be using any special pre-prepared brushes or patterns or anything like that. I'm just going to show how it all gets made now. So the first thing to do is just make a new file. So I'm going to start with I don't know, about 2,500 pixels. This is just to give me a good canvas to work on. Okay, so the first step is to make a grid. So what I want to do is, this is going to be made out of 10 by 10 rooms. So what I really want is some kind of grid just to help me size everything. So the way to do that is to make a new file already. So I'm going to make 100 by 100. And this is just going to be one cell of my grid. So let me move that into view here. So I'm going to pick some black ink, get just my line tool. It's a bit too thick. What's good? A couple pixels? That's fine. Okay, and I'm just going to go down the side here, holding shift to keep it vertical. Actually, let's try that again. And then a horizontal one. That's pretty much it. Then I go up to File and, Edit and Define Pattern. I'm just going to call it Grid. That's all I need to do for my grid. So now I go back to this file. So I've got my layers rack here, and I'm going to make a new layer using this little tool here. And instead of just like a blank layer that I'm going to draw on, I'm going to use a pattern layer. And then I can just pick the grid that I just made. So there it is. And it's that easy. So I'm going to scale this down maybe to 50%. So that seems like a decent grid I can work with. Okay, I don't know if those are 10 by 10 squares or 5 by 5. It doesn't really matter so much. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is make a couple of brushes. So I'm going to make a square brush and a hex brush just for kicks. So square brush is super easy. Again, just make a new file if you don't happen to have a square brush. There's my 100 by 100 image. Fill it with black. Bam. Done. Define a brush preset. Call it square. Now the hex brush is a little trickier, but I'll explain. So what you do is you start off with a new file, and I'm going to draw a hexagon. And I'm going to make this 400 wide. And if you make it 400 wide, hexagons aren't as tall as they are wide if you have the pointy end sideways. So this needs to be 346. And you can just trust me on that one. Or you can look up the geometry of a hexagon and figure out why that is. But to make my hex, what I do is, let's make this a bit bigger so you can see better. Just grab a guide here from the edge so I can find that brush is too big. Grab a guide from the side of my picture, and it should snap in the middle. This helps me just find the middle of the picture. What I'm going to try and do is do the outline of a hexagon. You can probably find hexagons online if you'd rather do that. This would get you a nice high resolution one. But what I'm going to do is find the horizontal like that, and then just rotate that using my transform tool 60 degrees. Make a new layer, do the same for the other corner to corner. transform that and do minus 60 degrees. So this basically shows me where the corners of the hexagon are. So now I'm going to make a new layer for the actual final thing. I'm going to choose my straight line selection tool and oops, click too soon. Do that and just go these corners. It doesn't actually need to be super precise because the resolution I'm working at here is much higher than the actual map that I'm using this brush on. And I'm just going to fill that with black. Hide the rest of this nonsense and define my brush preset. Hexagon. Okay, so now I've got my hex brush. I don't need to save that, so let's just see these brushes. So if I switch to a layer that I can draw on, and there I got my square down here. I got my hex here. That's perfect. And let's just erase all this. Okay, so how we talked a little bit about making a dungeon, but haven't actually done anything yet. So what I'm going to do is set up some layers. And the way this works is that, and the reason it saves time is that instead of drawing walls, I'm going to draw the corridors. So it's a subtle distinction, but I'm going to have Photoshop do the walls for me. So let's get rid of this empty layer, and I'm going to make a new solid color layer. I'm going to make it, let's start it off with gray for now so you can see what I'm doing. But the way solid color layers work in Photoshop is that there's basically a black and white opacity layer here that just lets me know if I'm painting that color. Excuse me, let me scroll up so I can see any chat messages. So if I paint on white, I get gray, and if I paint in black, it erases, right? So it's really simple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's get my square brush, and let's just say these are 5-foot squares, and I'm going to do a 10-foot corridor. Oops. Helps if I have the right color. There we go. So I'm painting in white, and I'm getting gray. Pretty straightforward. Now you can see I can paint a bunch of corridors here. Okay, so then let's have a little room. All right, so I think you can kind of see how this might work. So with my square brush, it's pretty easy just to sketch out these basic spaces. Link them with little corridors. Okay, but to make this look right, let's make this white. And now I'm going to add an effect to it. I'm going to add a stroke, and I'm going to put a 5-pixel black stroke around the edge. So now what happens is, whenever I draw in white, I get the walls to my corridor. So to make this look a little better, I'd like to put the grid on top of my on top of the corridors instead of all the way outside. Now it's handy to have a grid for reference, so I'm going to have 2 grids, which is just my reference grid here, and then I'm going to copy it by dragging this down here. And I'm going to set this to multiply so that I can still see my dungeon through it. And then I'm going to set it to a clipping mask, which means that it is restricted to the areas of the layer below. So I'm going to turn off this underlying grid, my reference grid, and this is going to be my dungeon grid, I guess. I don't know what to call it. So now you can basically see if I paint like this, and whatever I do, I just get dungeon rooms. So I think you can now see how simple that is. So let's just erase all this. I'm going to put my reference grid back on, and I'm going to change the opacity a little bit so I can tell the difference between the 2 grids. And then I guess the last step for just the basic dungeon layout would be to do an old school color. Why don't we do that, right? So let's add a solid color on top of all this. And I think a nice old schooly color is, you just have to know, is 237 FCC. That's okay. Get rid of that. Layer mask. And then again, let's set this to lighten. So now what happens is when I draw this corridor, 10 by 10 corridor, I get dungeon in old school blue. And you know what, I want the walls to be a bit thicker. That's too thick. How about 10 pixels, 9 pixels, that's fine. Okay, now is just the noodling part. Let's just draw some dungeon. Okay, so let's say the entrance is in, I like the entrance being on the left. I do a lot of 2-page dungeons, and it turns out to be really convenient if the stuff the players encounter is in the top left, because then your reading order matches your dungeon. Actually, let's start with a nice rocky exterior. So I'm going to take my Hex Brush. You can see there it is, and I'm going to change it a little bit so that, how do I get to this? I want my brush settings. Okay, let's change the spacing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to make a brush here that gives me a bit of a sense of a rocky cliff face. So I'll have a bit of size jitter, a bit of angle jitter. Maybe pull the spacing in a little bit. Okay, so now I can do kind of naturalistic cavern walls. I go with the spacing a bit higher. Okay. And let's save this. Let's save this as a cave brush. All right, so let's just label these layers, make sure they're all properly labeled. So this is going to be my dungeon layer, or let's just call it corridors. Okay, and I'm going to just clean it all off to start again. Okay, so now I guess I got my tools built up, and let's start with some outside. Maybe there's a rocky ravine here. All right, that looks okay. Now what do we got? Where do the evil cultists dig their holes? Let's make these 5-foot squares. What do you think? Actually, you know what? I want that grid to be bigger. I have 2 grids, so I'm going to change them both. They still match. All right, so I'm going to make this 10-foot wide corridor. Hold down Shift, and that's too wide. Oh, that's good. What size is that? 60 pixels wide is a good size for that. use undo a lot. Actually, the square brush, I don't quite like the settings for it because I want it to be a bit smoother. Yeah, that's better. Let's get rid of this old one. All right. Is that a nice smooth square brush? It is. Okay. I don't know what this is. Maybe this is, originally it was some mines. Why don't we say that? So let's have some, let's put a few natural caves in here. Just some spaces left with water drained away maybe. Okay, so, and let's say, get my square brush again, the miners. I don't like this wonky room. So now that I've got my grid set up, I can actually just draw and then use fill to make rooms whatever size I like. So I'm going to use my paint tool here, fill it with white, and I get the same effect. And this lets me do slightly funky entranceways, which I like. So let's erase all this. So I'm going to experiment here a bit to see how I like it. So make a wide corridor, and I'm going to erase across here to make a little archway, and then make a narrower gap. I don't know, what do you think? I think it needs work. Let's try bigger. Okay, so this seems like a good place for a door. So again, you can easily use, you just draw the door, but I find it easiest to take another layer. So I'm going to use a solid color. I'm going to make another white layer. Invert the opacity again. So now if I just draw on this, I'm drawing in white like I had before, but I'm going to put a stroke around it, and I'm going to use this for my doors. This is going to be my door layer, and I don't think I need my doors as thick as my walls, so let's make that 6. So does that look like a door? I just go in here and old school door. So the thing about this, you can make the corridors kind of interesting by just adding little divots and whatnot to them. Actually, let's make a whole columned hallway. So at some point, I guess the cultists decided this would be a great place for their little cathedral. I'm drawing on my door layer here. All right, let's do a funky wall for this cathedral, this underground temple. So I'm just going to move it over here to start, and let's use the Hex Brush. I haven't done anything with that yet. I'm going to switch to eraser. You can actually erase interesting shapes as well. So I'm put divots in this wall using my Hex Brush. And then let's get a round brush. We'll make some little alcoves for statues. Oops. That's okay. So I'm going to copy this. And if I hold down Alt as I drag this, I should get a copy of it. And then I can transform it to flip it horizontally. And I got a matching opposite wall. So now I'm going to glue this to my cathedral here. Oh. Where do I want to move this? Kind of a weird little arrangement here. Let's put a somewhere funky for the altar at the end. Great. And let's shave off these points here. The left side doesn't look right, does it? Okay. Carl, is it Carl or Laura? I think it's probably Carl this time asking questions in chat. I know you have your alter ego going. I don't tend to put out a lot of two-pagers with 2D maps. People have asked me to do VTT maps because I know a lot of people are playing on Roll20 and things like that. And I just only so many hours in the day, so I haven't done that. So I don't know. Maybe this will be a two-pager at one point. Let's make this this like a bunch of wicked saints, and so instead of one big altar, there'll be 4. How do I make this symmetrical? Nope. All right, it's Carl. For all of you looking at the top of my head, it's because I'm looking down at, I got a little tablet as my second monitor here, so I'm hunched over this so you can see my balding pate as I work. Let's have some columns. Let's put some hexagonal columns. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on this out here. So I'm going to make a strip of room, which will have, let's say about this long. I'm going to fill it with corridor, and then I'm going to erase using my Hex Brush. So let's put a guide down the middle, make it easier for me to be accurate. And then if I erase, I end up with a little column shape there. Are those too close together? I don't know. Claustrophobic cathedral. So then if I take this and I paste, no, that's not going to work. I have to use my alt drag technique. Oh, I remember what I did last time. Okay, I got to delete some room so I can plonk this down. So let's rip out a bunch of this cathedral here. Just fill that with black so that it's not, oh, that's not right. What is happening? Oh, I'm on my door layer again. There we go. What is this? Photoshop is a mystery sometimes. You end up with these layers, you don't know how you got them. Okay, so let's take this and drag a copy of it into here. And where should these, let's put it on the line. And then I want another one, like that. I think those are level. No. All right. And now just to fill in all the garbage I had to delete here. With white, not black. So this is where it gets a little confusing, I guess, but you know, really the basic is that I'm painting white for corridor and black for space. So these columns, if I didn't have any fancy Photoshop filters on, would just be little black hexagons. Let's delete this. Got my columns. What else do we need? How about a little statue symbol? So let's make, this was, I forgot to name this. This is my doors layer. Let's make just a hand-drawn details layer. Nothing, no special filters, just draw. So let's have a statue symbol. I'm just going to freehand this because I'm a cowboy. Because I can draw a circle. It's a melted statue of Cthulhu. Okay. No more hand-drawn circles. A bit thicker. Still got the stray guide kicking around to get rid of. That looks okay. All right, let's make it smaller. Smaller yet, I think. Oops, I got a bunch of these layers. Let me flatten them all down. Alrighty, well, let's put some in the actual. It's a lot of statues in this room. That's cool. There we go. All right, creepy cathedral. Need some stairs. So I'll do this on my details layer again. Let's just have a big bank of stairs here. Okay. Does this have a clear story above it? I don't know what that means. It might. Is that meant to be 2 words? Is this like, do I know what I'm doing? Does this have a clear story? No, it doesn't. I think this is canyon with the beginning of a mine, which I haven't finished, some natural caves, and then a creepy temple. And I still have to draw how this all connects. Okay, well, who is building all this temple is going to be some very hardworking monks. So let's give them a place to sleep. And make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm building more corridors. And let's have some. Actually, let's do the cross piece separately. So each monk's cell will be, let's make it a skinny room, like that. And let's start here and do the same. And then we'll have a very skinny corridor across, like that. So let's get it centered. Now I can take this and can I drag it onto here just like this? Not exactly. Let's just make a row of these though. Using my careful squint here. Okay. Now we could draw a corridor that connects all this. It's a bit wider. Boop. And okay, I'm gonna erase all this. So much fiddling just to so this doesn't damage the existing stuff I've drawn. Just getting my selection narrowed so I can move this into place. That looks good. So these are, let's give these all doors. So let's draw a door here. That's a good size for a door. Whoa. Let's leave one without a door for some reason. I don't know why. Broke off. Oh, I see. A clear story. I don't know. I think this was underground, but that would actually be kind of cool. I could do like a level 2 of this that shows the upper layer. That would be nice. Let's have some kind of little room here on the correct layer. Oh, was it? So you know a lot more about any of this than I do. So yeah, you mentioned, I think last time we were online together, that you had an art background. My older rascal is looking forward to being an interior designer. I promised some stairs, so let's do some stairs. Let's make a stair brush just to be fun. Okay, so let's start a new file. What's good? That's probably 200 by 200 is fine. And I'm just going to paint a bunch of more or less evenly spaced blocks. That looks okay. Okay, let's see how this works. So my thinking here is that I can just draw stairs like that. Those look a little bit fat maybe, but yeah, it's okay. I think they're too fat. I have regret. Okay, let's do this again. So Carl, with all that experience, how are you putting up with amateur hour over here? Is this you recapturing a time you don't have time for? All right, let's make this stair brush again, see if this looks any better. Let's draw in black. That's okay, that's cool. Hey, I like that, that's gonna be great. So actually, now I wanna put stairs everywhere. I guess I gotta remember how fat these stairs were. 50 pixels, that's easy to remember. Let's put some stairs here and here. And let me just get the brush settings right so that I can do stairs in different directions. Like, that doesn't work, obviously. And let's do initial direction. Let's try that, see if that works. Sort of. I guess I have to clean that up. Alrighty. Well, I can still Okay, that's good enough. Let's save this. This is really stairs. Delete all these other previous attempts. All right, how would this connect? I think probably, let's make a little, there's got to be a little secret door somewhere. Let's say the, oh, I've managed to delete something I shouldn't have. Okay, let's make a corridor that connects here. So, be a secret door. All right, so then let's repair that wall. I'm just erasing here. Yeah. Or I think I am. What am I doing? Yeah, there it is. Starting to show up. Okay. How do I want to show a secret door? Probably just want to have a little S. So let's paint in black. Oh, it's too big. Can't see anything. Okay, so let's put this up here. I have some labels. Start my labels layer. It's a group, and let's put a stroke around it just so that I can see it clearly. So I'll put a white stroke around that. Okay. I don't know. That's okay. What font do I want? Probably a bit smaller. Except, let's use a creepier font, like Dominican or something. All right, now whose fancy chambers does that connect to? And I'm going to steal a door. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't know what that was. I don't know if I was somehow triggered some feedback from myself, but yesterday's audio was really pretty lousy. All right, now let's draw on one of those wavy curtains. Should we have a bed? Maybe that looks a little too cozy, I don't know. And let's do a chest here. It's not a very good chest. It's just too big, that's the one problem. It's supposed to be a key. Does it look like a key? Yes, I would say a lot of my dungeon design grows out of the spaces I create. I mean, as somebody a little strapped for time, I find it's nice to be able to draw, and there's so much kind of just time it takes to get something finished that that the drawing time itself is like think time. I'm sorry, I got distracted by this little gray line there, and sometimes you're like, what layer is that on? Weird, eh? Curious. Yeah, so I guess the story kind of, or just the use of the place kind of emerges. All right, what else? I guess this has to connect, doesn't it? Oops. Let's make this a little more grand. And let's do one of those funky sides again. Let's I don't know what that's all about, but it works. Not the plan. There we go. Alrighty. So we should have some kind of feature in the middle here. Actually, what I'd kind of like to do is add a whole bunch of texture. So one of the other things that I used to do is surround this with texture. So let's do that. Let's make a solid color layer, old school blue. Turn that off, and then let's just get a big splattery. Oops. It's chaos over here at the Prescott household. What have I done? Some dialogue I'm not seeing. Here we go. Okay, let's call this background splatter. Okay, and I'll get that messy cave brush. I don't know if this is better or not, but so what would it look like without the ref grid? I don't know. I don't know. But no one's going to move in if they can't get from A to B. Let's make a little side room here. And I'm going to erase this because this is in the way. It's also a weird size, isn't it? I'm keeping this plan. I'm going to do it isometric next. If I was going to do that, I would have started out that way. I have occasionally done an isometric or even just a perspective drawing by taking this, putting it into SketchUp, and then like lofting it up so you can get that third dimension. But I'm not going to do that with this one. Oops, that was a erase. Link. There we go, that's kind of fun. Now, that's the antechamber, so it doesn't matter quite so much how cool it is when you get in there. Alrighty, let's connect some of these caves together. Actually, I should put this up for download afterwards so that people can get it. If they care about the map or not, the layers might be useful to them. Alrighty, and why not? Let's have a way to connect from there to there. Alright, since we made that funky hex brush, why not have a hex-shaped room? Where do I want it? How about here? Ooh, too big. That's all right. I don't know why. Hex shape rims always say magic to me. Maybe it's too much TARDIS as a kid. I don't know what this is, but it's kind of I didn't mean to duplicate that, but actually it's kind of funny as a like a visual stutter. I don't know. And you know what? Let's have a big hexagonal pillar in the middle of this room, covered in weird runes. There. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's better with the spray around it? I used to have this kind of gravelly textury brush that I used before I switched machines and didn't bring that over. But one of the things that I did was I'm going to make it again. I had a little Pebble Brush that I quite liked. So I took this brush, and let's just play it out here, and let's make a Pebble Brush. Pretty much the same, but with way more spacing. And the size should be quite a lot smaller. Let's see, and a lot of size jitter, I think, here. That's good. Okay, I think I want a bit bigger. Okay, you'll see what I'm getting at in a second. So, okay, so I've got my background splatter, and I'll just add another layer. Oh, I want to just sort of roughen up this edge with some pebbles. This is just to amuse me, really. And I guess the danger in kind of doing too much of this is that it makes it look meaningful. It's not really. It's just like a texture spray at the edge of the colored in area. I think it would actually make more sense out here, right? Looking like rubble. Yeah, I changed my mind. Don't like that. Not putting that on here. All right, how many separate brush strokes is that? Okay, let's put some rubble out here, though. Oh, I should save this brush. Actually, that's a pretty good rubble brush. I like that. Well, doesn't this place need to be full of rubble? Yes, it does. Wow. So again, all I did there was just took my Hexagon brush and spread it out and put some random angle jitter and stuff on it. Now, I don't think the western end of this map is really paying for itself in terms of interest. It's just a big space with not much going on. So I think we need to add something like some elevation changes or some weird plants or something. Okay, well, since nobody is a captive audience and you can all leave if this drives you mad, let's experiment and make a elevation change brush. So what do I want? I want about, let's do, I think I'm going to need to play with this a little bit to make it come out right, but okay, so need a hard round. Whoop. Okay. So there are these diagrams where you've got these elevation changes on maps, and they look a little like this. And if I make the brush right, let's give this a crack, see what happens. So define a brush preset, and we'll call it elevation. Okay, so make a new layer to play with this. It's going to be a lot of experimenting here. That's way off. All right, I think you can see where I'm going with this. We'll see if it works, basically. That's the idea. Hey, look at that. Large pool of water that connects via underground caves that connect off to the left. Underwater, yeah. So, okay, so we could have like a river that comes in here and then goes out here and has some pool over here. So let's do that. So in order to do that, let's have, okay, so let's back up a bit. Let's make a water layer. So make another pattern, and I don't know how big to make this one. Let's make it 200. Let's make it, again, 400 by 400. And I'm just going to draw some water. This is my, I don't know. Okay, so okay, so let's hack up pieces of this and move them around. This is really low rent water here. That's okay. What I need to do is make a tiling texture so that there's no weird seams. So I'll just do a few of these and you'll get the idea. Okay, so let's take that. And then this half. Oops. I'll expect this to line up. We'll see what happens. It's kind of not way off. All right. Okay. That's what you hire me for. Water, anybody can draw. Okay. Let's crop to there. Okay, so now see if I can remember how to tile this properly. So there's a filter that lets me offset and vertically 0. Oh, I'm going to copy this. That's what I'm going to do. How does one do this again? All right, filter, offset. Oh, repeat, wrap around. That's what I want. 0. Okay, so there's the seam. So what I've done is I've wrapped it around exactly half its width sideways. So now I just need to repair this oops, yeah. By drawing in white. Whether you got to erase or draw in white all totally depends on how you started organizing your layers. So you can kind of see the seam pretty badly. But all right. Okay, let's just make a water pattern with it. Actually, I should offset it vertically just to see if the spacing is good. Let's do 100 vertically. I haven't quite figured out why offset sometimes does this weird thing where it doesn't seem to wrap even though I'm asking it to. So let's do 0. And then, like, why is it not wrapping? Oh well, anyway, who knows? All right, define a pattern. We'll call it lame water. And how does it look? It looks kind of like lame water. Cool. Cool. Okay, so now let's make a water layer. Pattern. It's about the right scale. Water. Make it old school water under here. And I think there should probably be an edge to the water, otherwise it'll be. So I can now paint water, but we'll want a little edge around it. So let's put a stroke. should be black. Cool. All right, so let's complete our cavern. So we need more corridor to connect. So what do you got here for me, Carl? Caves back where I was from used to go above and below water all over, and some caves were not accessible at different times of year when the stream inside was running high. Yeah, I love I've not really ever put this into practice, but I love the idea of an adventuring site that is different seasonally. So, you know, frozen waterfalls or flooded streams that make some areas accessible and other areas not accessible. And I think you really have to have a campaign that supports the players coming back, knowing and understanding how the site works, and revisiting it for that to work. But it is very appealing. And you say if there was a map indicating a connection, then some players might try and swim the span underwater. Yeah, I think that's good because you can never tell. Like, it's a lot of dungeons have like a river that flows through them, but you're not going to map the whole river. And so it's kind of classic to have this river that just goes off and falls off a cliff somewhere into some infinitely horrible underground space, and there's no way for players to tell the difference between something they should check out and something that's just deadly. So a map is a great idea. All right, and let's I think this would maybe be a bit smoother, right, because it's eroded by water. So then what I should do is make sure my water layer is, where is my water layer? What did I do with it? And okay, I'm going to make this a clipping mask so that I can do my water, and it's going to be limited by the wall so that I don't end up with water out in space. And I should put that stroke back on. I guess I must have did one undo step too many. Okay, so where's this water going to go? We're going to do the cliff to nowhere? Okay, I guess maybe going in it can be wide and slower and a bit faster moving on the way out. I think I'm going to have to get rid of some of this dungeon rubble if I've got water flowing through here. Okay, I'm having one of those moments. What did I do? I deleted my water layer again. This is one of those things that I guess if we watch the video replay, we'd see what I did. And I'm just going to save this. All right, so let's have a pool out here. I lost my stroke again. Actually, I think this should be smooth edged out here. Let's have a pool. if I wanted to improve that pattern, it would be easy to go back and do that again without having to repaint where the water is, which is one of the nice benefits of this kind of dungeon design. Let's have the water pooling back here. Alrighty, let's get rid of some of this rubble. Actually, what I'll do is I will select the water and then delete the rubble in the water. Yeah. Mention the limestone. My whole hometown saw it on limestone. So what I understand about limestone is that it's a softer rock and is easily washed away by erosion, which makes for all sorts of interesting caves. Okay, what else? So I teased I was going to do some elevation. Let's actually do that. Oh, I didn't save it. Alrighty, where's my... I set up that elevation brush and then didn't save the settings, but it's okay. Alright. So basically there's a way to have Photoshop track the direction of your pen and adjust the angle of the brush as you go, which lets it do this kind of thing. It's not super smooth. I wonder if I can improve that. I think the answer is to only make narrow changes. If you make sharp changes, it looks terrible. Which means smaller will also be better. So, okay, let's get rid of that mess. I think it works, basically. Gives you the idea. Alrighty, what else do we need? One thing I had done in the past is put pebbles on the inside of this, just to make it look a little, so we'd make it white, not whatever that was. Make this a clipping mask, and then just put some, let's see what this looks like. I don't think it makes a difference one way or the other, do you? All right, so I guess I gotta make sure there's enough blue around all this to make it look properly in stone. All right, and if I turn off my reference grid, this is what we have. So I guess we could do some labels now. So I wouldn't really normally do labels if I was going to, oh, and look at this. Look what I've done. I said I wouldn't do labels if I was going to do callouts in my adventure, but I realize I've filled in these columns, which I don't want. And I guess I should indicate which way these stairs work, shouldn't I? So, I got too many stairs on the one side. I'm gonna have to do some more stairs here. Otherwise, I got an Escher situation. Okay, so these are definitely going to be up this way. So let's come in like that. And same here. Now, I might as well just copy and paste, instead of drawing it again. All right. All right, see you, Carl. All right, let us put, why don't we actually just put some real labels on these things. So it's not really big enough, is it? All right, let's call this, I guess we'll name all these individually, right, in case somebody wants to stock them with, oops, awesomeness. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. That's fine. Actually, I think that font could be bigger, don't you? Let's just do that. Photoshop has absolutely bazillion commands, so that it's easy to do something and you don't quite know what you did, and suddenly everything is a little different, and controls you need are now missing. Apparently I was in some funky mode there. B6. Oops. And let's give one of these a special. One of those will be 9A, special statue. 11. And something fun at the end there. And I guess we should do the river now. Right? Should explain. Here's where you fall off the end. Cool. All right, so let's crop this a bit to make it a bit more manageable. That's fine, and I don't think we need quite so much canyon. To give people the idea of how that works. That's probably plenty. Cool. All right. I think we're done. Thanks for joining. And I will push these up. I'll put these on my blog, trilemma.com. You can grab it and use this map, or you can rip all the bits out and do what I did to yourself and just use these layers to do your own map. Anyway, have fun, and thanks for joining me. I will see you again.